We start this hour in the Middle East, and Israel has confirmed that Turkish troops will not be deployed to Gaza as part of a proposed multinational force. Government spokesperson Shos Bedrosian told reporters, quote, "There will be no Turkish boots on the ground," end quote. The force is part of Donald Trump's plan to end the two-year conflict in Gaza, aimed at gradually taking over security from the Israeli Defense Forces. It is yet to be established, with many nations calling for a United Nations Security Council mandate. Meanwhile, US officials, including Ambassador Tom Barak and Vice President J.D. Vance, have suggested Turkey could play a constructive role. Washington has said it will not impose foreign troops on Israeli soil. The debate highlights the challenges in forming an international stabilization force amid ongoing regional tensions. Let's take a listen in to Shos Bedrosian, the Israeli government spokesperson.
Turkey has issued arrest warrants for 37 Israeli officials, including Prime Minister Netanyahu, and the U.S. has been pressuring Israel to accept the participation of Turkey in the International Security Force, and the multinational civil military administration in Phase 2 is expected to oversee the governing specifically of the Gaza Strip. So in terms of that, here's what I can tell you, and of course, thank you for your questions. There will be no Turkish boots on the ground in the present, in the past, in the future, specifically in the international stabilization.
We're now joined by Peter Baum. He's the foreign editor of the Weekly Blitz, and he joins us live from London. Peter, great to talk to you. Of course, the US and Turkey, mainly through their two leaders, of course, are currently very strong allies. However, Turkey has been making some adversary statements towards the current Israeli government. How do you see this playing out? Of course, a multinational stabilization force for the Gaza Strip is nothing short of a tricky task in putting together. Of course, Israel has now affirmed that Turkey will not have boots on the ground. The US might support this, however. Of course, an interesting development. Peter, what are your thoughts on how might this materialise?
Now, Turkey is one of the main winners politically out of the recent Gaza conflict. She has managed to support an ex-terrorist who is now in charge of Syria, supported him with weapons, with military, financially, and has ousted the Assad regime, with which Turkey was very, very unfriendly with, as we know, resulting in the deaths of thousands of people along the Syrian-Turkish border. So Erdogan, from a position of strength, and domestically, having seen off the problems from the Istanbul opposition, from the mayoral opposition, sees himself as Nasser did, as Saddam Hussein did, as a leader of the Muslim world. And he's playing to a domesticated audience by his continuous anti-Israeli rhetoric, though at the same time well aware that that Turkey is a member of NATO, that all NATO countries are on side with the Trump agreement, and that Erdogan himself wants to see the Trump ceasefire plan go through. But she also wants a role for herself in Gaza. And one of those roles, as Erdogan sees it, could be a military role, which is a red line for Israel. There is no way that Israel will allow Turkish troops to have any say in being part of the peacekeeping force, so to speak, in the Gaza Strip. So the next few weeks will be very interesting to see who is the winner on this. Trump is against Turkish troops because he fully understands the Israeli position, and yet Erdogan may consider this to be yet another feather in his cap if he can change the situation and get some kind of Turkish presence, military, peacekeeping, security, call it what you like, in that area of the Gaza Strip. It wouldn't surprise me if the Israelis compromised on allowing some kind of Turkish presence within the Strip, though not a military one, perhaps a more of a peacekeeping role, but a very scrutinised peacekeeping role. So this is all up for negotiation, but I think both sides may, I think Israel may have to give in on this, and that will be a major win for Erdogan politically. So the next few days, the next couple of weeks are going to be relevant to see if Erdogan gets his way.
Yes, and Peter, of course, Benjamin Netanyahu, Donald Trump, we know how close they are as leaders. However, of course, there has been some arguments in the past. However, what we can't rule out is that closeness between Erdogan and Donald Trump as well. Donald Trump admires Erdogan's leadership style very much. Do you see this, and of course, given Benjamin Netanyahu's track record of not allowing any criticisms, any people who criticize Israel anywhere near plans of this, do you see this possibly causing another rift between the Israeli Prime Minister and the American President?
Possibly, Thomas, but I actually think on this particular issue, a compromise could be found. I don't think this, although on the face of it seems red line, a Netanyahu red line, and Turkey and Erdogan want to impose dominance for Turkey within the whole of the Middle East and to give him even more credibility in the Muslim world. I think a compromise could be reached on this, as long as it's not the Turkish army per se, and perhaps a Turkish police force. I think a compromise could be reached, which would definitely satisfy Trump. It may be unpalatable for the Israelis, but not so unpalatable that they couldn't concede. And for Erdogan, although he wants more, it would still be seen to be a win for him domestically and within the wider Muslim world.
Yes, Peter, do stay with us. We have further updates coming out of West Asia. Iran is grappling with its worst drought in decades, with water levels in reservoirs plummeting to critically low levels. In Mashhad, the country's second largest city, water storage in dams has dropped to less than 3%. Authorities are now emphasising the urgent need to manage water use as shortages escalate across the country. Tehran, which is home to 10 million people, is facing a dire situation with its main reservoirs, including the Amir Kabir Dam, dangerously low on water. Officials have already implemented periodic water cuts to conserve supplies, and the situation is expected to worsen unless significant rainfall occurs very soon. President Masoud Pezeshkian has warned of potential evacuation plans for Tehran if rain does not fall before the end of the year. This comes as half of Iran's provinces have seen no rainfall for months, affecting millions of people across the country. Now, Peter, of course, this seems to be a dire situation, even a situation which might lead to the evacuation of the Iranian capital. Do you see this as a major internal stability threat for Iran?
Absolutely, Thomas, and I've been writing about this for months now in my articles for Weekly Blitz. I'll just give your audience some kind of hardships that the Iranians are going through. In Tehran, which is most affected, if one lives in an apartment block of 20 floors or more, for months now, for only 2 hours in every day, if you're living in, say, floors 3 and above, the water pressure is 0, and therefore apartment dwellers can only get 2 hours of running water a day. If you're on the ground floor or first floor, perhaps, you get something like 4 hours a day. Public toilets are closed. Hospitals are unable to function to anything like their full capacity, and the business sector is suffering tremendously, as is the agricultural sector, which previously had been the recipient of 85% of the Iranian water supply. climate change, mismanagement, infrastructure repair are all having similar effects. Pipes are bursting for what water there is. The reservoir levels are, as you quite rightly reported, Thomas, really low. And the medium-range weather forecast is that no rain for the next couple of months. So wouldn't it be remarkable if if natural disaster brought down the Iranian regime and not the superpowers such as the USA and Israel and the domestic opposition? And there's one other thing, Thomas, that is equally important, unreported by mainstream media. During the war with Israel, Iran decided to ethnically cleanse their Afghan population, frankly, for a number of reasons. One, because they couldn't cope with the illegal immigrants coming into Iran who were further draining the economy. And secondly, they used the excuse that the Afghans were Zionist spies. Now, those Afghans in Iran were a major source of revenue stream for Afghanistan. And Afghanistan, the Taliban, have reacted very harshly by cutting off water supplies that under the Helmand Agreement of 1973 they were obliged to do. So the exacerbating the lack of water in Iran is the Afghan government, who have cut off, under international agreements I may add, the 825 cubic meters of water, 825 million cubic meters of water, litres of water, they are obliged to supply under international agreements. They've just ignored such agreements as a measure in response to Iran kicking out nearly 1 million Afghans. So Iran is under severe pressure, and this could create chaos, has already created chaos, and there's opposition in the streets, there's riots in many of the provinces.
Yes, Peter Bourne, thank you very much for bringing us those updates and that insight.